عليكم أهل البيت. ولعن الله أمة دفعتكم عن مقامكم وأذلتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتبكم الله فيها. ولعن الله أمة ختلتكم. ولعن الله الممحدين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم. برئت إلى الله وعليكم منهم ومن أشيائهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم. يا أبا عبد الله، إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة. ولعن الله آل زياد وآل مروان. ولعن الله بني أمية قاطبة. ولعن الله ابن مرجانا. ولعن الله عمر بن سعد. ولعن الله شمرا. ولعن الله أمة أسرجت وعلجمت وتنقبت لقتالك. بأبي أنت وعمي لقد عظمت المصاب بك، فأسأل الله الذي أكرم مقامك وأكرمني بك أن يرزقني تلب صارك مع إمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم اجعلني عندك وجيها بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة. يا أبا عبد الله، إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بموالاتك وبالبراعة ممن قاتلك ونصب لك الحال، وبالبراعة ممن أسس أساس الظلم والجور عليكم، وأبرأ إلى الله وإلى رسوله ممن أسس أساس ذلك وبنى عليه بنيانه وجرى في ظلمه وجوره عليكم وعلى أشيائكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم، وأتقرب إلى الله ثم إليكم بموالاتكم وموالات وليكم، وبالبراعة من أعدائكم والناصبين لكم الحرب، وبالبراعة من أشيائهم وأتباعهم. إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم وولي لمن والاكم وعدو لمن عاداكم. فاسألوا الله الذي أكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني البراعة من أعدائكم، أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة، وأن يثبت لي عندكم خدم صدق في الدنيا والآخرة، وأسأله أن يبلغني المقام المحمود لكم عند الله، وأن يرزقني تلب صار مع إمام حادي ظاهر ناطق بالحق منكم. وأسأل الله بحقكم وبالشأن الذي لكم عنده أن يعطيني بمصاب بكم أفضل ما يعطي مصابا بمصيبة مصيبة، ما أعظمها وأعظم رزيتها في الإسلام وفي جميع السماوات والأرض. اللهم اجعلني في مقام هذا ممن تناله منك صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة. اللهم اجعل محياي محمد وآل محمد ومماتي ممات محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إن هذا يوم تبركت به بنو عمية وابن عاكلة الأكباد اللين ابن لعين على لسانك ولسان نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله في كل موطن وموقف وخفى فيه نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم لعن أبا سفيان ومعاوية ويزيد بن معاوية عليهم منك اللعنة عبد العابدين. وهذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مروان بقتلهم الحسين صلوات الله عليه. اللهم فزائف عليهم اللعن منك والعذاب العليم. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك في هذا اليوم وفي موقف هذا وأيام حياتي بالبراعة منهم واللعنة عليهم وبالموالاة لنبيك وآل نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله عبدا ما بقيت بقي الليل والنهار ولا جعل الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم قص أنت أول ظالم بلعن مني وبدأ به أولا ثم لعن الثاني والثالث والرابع. اللهم لعن يزيد خامسا ولعن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجان وعمر بن سعد وشبرا وآل أبي سفيان وآل زياد وآل مروان إلى يوم القيامة. سجدة. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مصابهم. الحمد لله على عظيم رضيتي. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين يوم الورود وثبت لي قدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا محجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام. اللهم صل على محمد. حاجات
मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलवार अब्बास क्या तराई में सोते हो चैन से, अकबर का लाशा उठ न सके गा हुसैन से, अकबर का लाशा उठ न सके गा हुसैन से। आए हुसैन जब अली अकबर की लाश पर, गश कर गए शबीह पैगंबर की लाश पर। आई जो याद भाई की दिलबर की लाश पर, ये बैन करते थे महे अनवर की लाश पर। अब्बास क्या तराई में सोते हो चैन से, अब्बास क्या तराई में सोते हो चैन से, अकबर का लाशा उठ न सके गा हुसैन से, अकबर का लाशा उठ न सकेगा हुसैन से। पुरसा भतीजे का नहीं देते हो भाई को, आकर गले लगा लो इस हक के फिदाई को। भैया खुदा के वास्ते छोड़ो तराई को, कुछ दो तसल्ली फातिमा ज़हरा के जाई को। अब्बास क्या तराई में सोते हो चैन से, अब्बास क्या तराई में सोते हो चैन से, अकबर का लाशा उठ न सके गा हुसैन से, अकबर का लाशा उठ न सके गा हुसैन से। नूरे नजर चला गया कुछ सूझता नहीं, आया है ऐसा वक्त कोई पूछता नहीं। भाई से यूं तो भाई कोई रूठता नहीं, गुर्बत में दिल का चैन कोई लूटता नहीं। अब्बास क्या तराई में सोते हो चैन से, अब्बास क्या तराई में सोते हो चैन से, अकबर का लाशा उठ न सकेगा हुसैन से, अकबर का लाशा उठ न सकेगा हुसैन से। खैमों में दर न आए सितमगर कहाँ हो तुम, छीने हो दू बहन की न चादर कहाँ हो तुम। भैया जला न दे कोई ये घर कहाँ हो तुम, बतलाओ कुछ तो शेर दिलावर कहाँ हो तुम। अब्बास क्या तराई में सोते हो चैन से, अकबर का लाशा उठ न सकेगा हुसैन से, अकबर का लाशा उठ न सकेगा हुसैन से। सलवात अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद।
ये सोचता हूँ कि आबिद का हाल क्या होगा, असीर हो के वो जब शाम में गया होगा। ये सोचता हूँ, सुना है शाम में जाते ही खून रोने लगा। सुना है शाम में जाते ही खून रोने लगा। न जाने शिम्र ने उस वक्त क्या कहा होगा। ये सोचता हूँ, गले की ताक ने आबिद को क्या झुकाना था। गले के ताक ने आबिद को क्या झुकाना था। वो अपने खोए हुए लाल ढूंढता होगा। ये सोचता हूँ, वो जुल्म देखे साजाद ने हुसैन के बाद। वो जुल्म देखे साजाद ने हुसैन के बाद। मुझे यकीन है कि अब तक भी रो रहा होगा। ये सोचता हूँ, वो याद करता तो होगा वतन की शाही को। ओ वो याद करता तो होगा वतन की शाही को। बहन को दफन जो परदेस में किया होगा। ये सोच लगता हूँ। जो गौर कीजिए तो आबिद बशर नहीं लगता। जो गौर कीजिए तो आबिद बशर नहीं लगता। मेरे ख्याल में दुख दर्द का खुदा होगा, ये सोचता हूँ। सवा
मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद।
ला इलाहा की अदा बिन्ते सल्ले अला। ला इलाहा की अदा बिन्ते सल्ले अला। नूरे ज़ाते इलाहा का गुलिस्तान हो, जिसकी कारी है खुद हस्ती-ए लम-गज़िल। ज़ौजाए मुर्तज़ा तुम वो कुर्आन हो। ला इलाहा की अदा बिन्ते सल्ले अला। क्या फ़ज़ाइल तेरे हैं, तेरे मर्तबे, तेरी चौखट पे आके मलाइक झुके। तेरी दहलीज है सूराए इन्नमा, अंबिया की जहाना निगाहें उठें। सैयदुल अंबिया अहमदे मुस्तफा, तेरे दर पे सलामी तो आके रुकें। बख्शशों का है तू ही पाकी वो पाको पाकी दर। तू ही तफसीरे सूराए रहमान है। ला इलाहा की अदा बिन्ते सल्ले अला। बाद बाबा के ठाए सितम इस तरह, इसको जी भर के उम्मत सताती रही। एक पल को बिना चैन लेने दिया, रात दिन सैयदा को रुलाती रही। मांगती रह गई हक की मेरास में, और ये उम्मत खड़ी मुस्कुराती रही। हाँ तुम्हारे पैगंबर की बेटी हूँ मैं, कुछ हया तो करो तुम मुसलमान हो। लाई हूँ बाबा की जागीर को, मेरी कोई गवाही नहीं मानते, ऐसे जुटला दिया मल का तत्हीर को। 4 घंटे मासूमा खड़ी रही, हाथ में लेके बाबा की तहरीर को। पारा पारा हुई मुस्तफा की सनद, पारा पारा हुई मुस्तफा की सनद, बीबी रोती रही चुम के कुरान को। ला इलाहा की अदा बिनते सल्ले अला
मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद।
मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद।
अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद।
कौन सा रंज था जो शय से उठाया ना गया, पर कोई शिकवा जुबां पर कभी लाया ना गया। कौन सा राज था चाहक बन के देखे ना बदर ज़ख्म जिगर, खून से जोश से उबला के छुपाया ना गया। कौन सा राज था खाली झूला कभी भूले से झुला देती थी माँ, झूलना झूले में असग़र का भुलाया ना गया। कौन सा रंज था बोली माला शे अकबर की बलाएं लेकर, तुमको नौशाह मेरे लाल बनाया ना गया। कौन सा रंज था टुकड़े टुकड़े था बदन फर्श अब्बास उठाया ना गया, कौन सा रंज था। पूछा जब बानों ने क्या हो गया मेरा असग़र, शह का सर झुक गया, कुछ मुँह से सुनाया ना गया, कौन सा रंज था। सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि
मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद।
बराए खुशनुदी मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु
अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद। मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद।
बराए खुशनुदी इमाम ज़माना बाआवाज़ बुलंद तर सलवात।
अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला
हाथ कटवा कर वफाओं की निशानी ले गया, हाथ कटवा कर वफाओं की निशानी ले गया, छीन कर दरिया गमे तशना दहानी ले गया, था वफा ऐसा बेहेश्ती साक़िए कौसर कलाल, मश्क जब छेदी गई आँखों में पानी ले गया, मश्क जब छेदी गई आँखों में पानी ले गया। सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि मोहम्मद वाले मालिक से भरे घर के उजड़ जाने को पूछो, घर वालों से ये तफरीका पड़ जाने को पूछो, माँ बाप से किस्मत के बिगड़ जाने को पूछो, शब्बीर से अकबर के बिछड़ जाने को पूछो, शब्बीर से अकबर के बिछड़ जाने को पूछो, अल्लाह न दिखलाए अलम नूर नजर का, बह जाता है आंखों से लहू कल्बो जिगर, बह जाता है आंखों से लहू कल्बो जिगर का, जिस वक्त के अकबर को लगा जख्म जिगर का, सीने में रुका आके दम सूरज के कमर का, गिरते हुए घोड़े से ख्याल आया पितर का, चिल्लाए के अब कुछ है दुनिया से फिसर का, बेकस की मुसाफिर की खबर ली, जिए बाबा अपने अली अकबर की मदद कीजिए अपने अली अकबर की मदद कीजिए बाबा। बेटे की सदा सुन के हुआ सदमाए जान का, एक हो कलेजे में उठी बैठ गए शाह, मालूम हुआ जान चली आह के हमरा, दिल थाम के हाथों से कहा या असदुल्लाह, रंग उड़ गया था गेसुओं पगार पड़ी थी, त्योरा के जो संभले तो बसारत में कमी, त्योरा के जो संभले तो बसारत में कमी थी। चिल्लाए बताओ अली अकबर किधर आए, ढूंढे तुम्हें अब बहर में या सुए बराए, बेताब है दिल क़ल्ब में लश्कर किधर आए, तुम उठ नहीं सकते तो हम ही लाश पर आए, माँ बाप के जीने का मजा ले गए बेटा, ओहदा जो तुम्हारा था मेरे गए ओहदा जो तुम्हारा था मेरे गए बेटा, हमें फिर या अबता कह के पुकारो, मजलूम गरीबुल गुरबा कह के पुकारो, नाशादो गिरफ्तारे बला कह के पुकारो, लब तशना मजबूह किफा कह के पुकारो, जो वक्त मुअय्यन है वो हरगिज़ ना टलेगा, खंजर मेरी गर्दन पर इसी तरह चले, खंजर मेरी गर्दन पर इसी तरह चले, ले आई जो बेताबिए दिल लाशे पिसर पर, झुकते ही नजर पहले पड़ी जख्म जिगर पर, एक तीर लगा क़ल्बे शहे जिन्नो बशर पर, सीने पे कभी हाथ को मारा कभी सर पर, ऊपर के दमोशेर को भरते हुए देखा, बाबा ने जवां बेटे को मरते हुए, बाबा ने जवां बेटे को मरते हुए, बाबा ने जवां बेटे को मरते हुए देखा।
बुलंदतर सलवार
मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलवार Muhammad. So the sisters, just another reminder that outside there are two tents which can be utilized, for one for brothers, one for sisters. And of course, there is a small room next to the men's hall where sisters can take their small kids if they want to utilize that. So Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. So the Ashur program will start at 10 o'clock with the Arabic Maqtal, and followed by 11 o'clock will be Amal Ashura, then Zuhran prayer, then Majlis of Roze Ashur, and after that will be Pakashigni, then after Maghraman there will be Shamil Ariman inshallah. So Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. There will be the list for upcoming program for the 25th of Muharram. Maulana Muhammad Beg Sahab is coming for 3 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, which is September 2nd, 3rd and 4th. I'm going to put the announcement outside. Whoever wants to sponsor those programs, please write your name. For Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Now I would like to invite Maulana Mendi Agha Sahab on the member.
बराए खुशनुदी मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलावत
Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.
बराए सलामती उलमाए करराम ज़ाकिरीन वज़्ज़ाम व मुआलियाने आले अतहार सलावत
Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali.
बराए खुशनुदी मौला बावाज़े बुलंद तर सलवात
Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصينا ماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون. الذي لا يدركه بعد الحمم ولا يناله غوث الفتن. الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت محدود ولا عجل ممدود. فترى الخلائق بقدرته ونشر الرياح برحمته. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وخاتم النبيين ورحمة للعالمين أبي القاسم محمد.
اللهم
صل على محمد وعلى أخيه وابن سهره وخليفته من بعده وقائد الغر المحجلين ياسوف الدين إمام المتقين أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب وعلى ابنته الطاهرة الحوراء الإنسية الراضية المرضية الشفية يوم الجزاء فاطمة الزهراء سلام الله عليها. وعلى سبتي رحمة وسيد شباب أهل الجنة الحسن والحسين. اللهم صل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد وحسن بن علي وحجة القائم المنتظر المهدي. اللهم صل على محمد. حججك على عبادك وعمنائك في بلادك. اللهم سهل منهجهم وعجل في فرجهم وجعلنا من محبيهم ومواليهم وشيعتهم. ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا استجيبوا لله ولرسوله إذا دعاكم لما يحييكم. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. صل على محمد. I I begin in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. It is our honor, it is our fate in which Allah has graced us with the Allah of Sayyidul Shuhada, and we are commemorating and also reflecting upon the footsteps of Imam Hussain. We are seeing that in the hardest of conditions, the most difficult conditions, how not only Ahl al-Bayt had endured the hardships, but even those who were surrounding them, including children, they also confronted those calamities and those hardships with itminan, with complete composure, with complete peace and tranquility, without complaining. A little, if we are confronted with a little bit of hardship, we start complaining about Allah. We start complaining to other people about Allah as if Allah is not our sustainer, and these people whom you are complaining to, they can help you out with a little hardship, my dear brothers and sisters, and we see that we are already whining and we are already complaining. But these are those personalities whom Allah had sent us to be guided through them, and we only see their compassion and their rahmah and their love, not only towards those who love them, even those who were against them. Even with them you find their character, their akhlaq were such that the person would completely concede eventually and say that you should be somebody else. I don't think you are somebody like me, but you have to be far, far beyond that, because not only you have the courage, but you also have the sabr and the patience. And Imam Hussain was teaching that, and we find his followers walking on that path. And I was telling the other day also, when we make dua, we ask Allah that, oh Allah, everything that you have given to Ahlul Bayt, we also want that. Every khair that you have given to them, we also want the same khair. Every shar that you have kept them away, we also want us to be kept away from that shar. And if we are sincere in our words, then this is the dua of Eid that we recite when we are reciting Salatul Eid, my dear brothers and sisters. And Ahlul Bayt had guaranteed that if you hold on to them, as the Prophet of Allah had said, Inni tarikum fikum mustaqalain kitab Allahi wa itrati ahle bayti. I am leaving behind two precious things for you. One is the book of Allah, and the other is my progeny, my Ahlul Bayt. If you hold on to them, you shall meet me at Hawz al-Kawthar, the fountain in heaven. That is where we are going to meet. Salawat Allah Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. But we have to respond to their call. When Allah calls, as the verse I had been reciting from the first day, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu istajibu lillahi wa li rasulih. Answer to Allah and His apostle when they summon you, when they ask you to come, answer to them. Lema yuhyikum, so that you may attain life. The life that we are leading without responding to the call of Allah and His hujjah is a life which is not considered life in the sight of Allah. That's why Allah wants us to attain that life that would be granted by Allah and His Messenger. If you look at the words of the Holy Quran, what does Allah say about martyrs? وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ. That do not account those who die in the way of Allah as dead. They are alive. And not only that, they are not only alive, they are even receiving sustenance, the verse of Holy Quran says. So that life, my dear brothers and sisters, if we want to attain that life that would lead us to eternity, then we have to die, as the Prophet of Allah himself says, Mutu qablan tamutu. Die before you actually die. Here dying means that you disengage yourself from the love of this world. Do not let the love of this world be the criteria of your actions. Do not let your desires overpower you and control you such that you do not see halal and haram. You do not see the boundaries that Allah and His Messenger had laid, and you cross all of them only to fulfill your own lust and your own desires. If we are doing it, then we are engaged, but we are not engaged to a point that we are willing to give everything in this world and sell our akhirah. We want to give everything in this world and buy our akhirah. We want our afterlife, which is going to be eternal, that in that life Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would offer what He has in store for those who are mu'mineen, those who are siddiqeen, those who are shuhada, those who are martyrs, those who are truthful, those who are muttaqeen, those who are God-aware people. Allah has promised them a paradise which is never ending and a life which is never ending. And our awliya, Allah's representatives, they came so that we can aspire to those higher goals and not be in this lower level of only feeding into the desires of our body, but feeding into the soul. What is it that our soul needs? How can we nourish and nurture our soul? We see that we are nurturing and nourishing our children with food, with vitamins and all kinds of food, so that the child is healthy and he is mentally capable and he is smart and he can go and compete in the life that he is competing here. But do we equally put equal or more emphasis on our child's spiritual development? Do we ask them to reflect? We are, especially with this social media age, my dear brothers and sisters, it is so engaging and so absorbing. Before, it was like your child had to leave the house and go to a video game, at some strip mall, and over there they would play video games. But now then came a time when you have to have a computer. So they were, the psychologists were saying, keep your computer outside, not in your bedroom, because you will be engaged. But then it is not anymore. Now the phone is right next to you, and there are 100 excuses for you to keep your phone next to you than to keep it away from you. And we find, especially children, they are getting so absorbed and they are getting so engaged and so addicted, as a result of which, for them to focus for a longer period of time has become a huge challenge. Even in this pandemic, there were so many online majalis, people who are deprived of having the ability to physically come and listen to a majlis. If they are online, I can understand that. But being online and listening to a 50 minutes lecture these days become very, very hard. You're sitting, you're eating, a phone call comes, your child comes, asks something, you will completely lose focus of what is going on. You have to dedicate time to learn and uplift your spirit and your soul. How you dedicate time for your mental health and your physical health by going to a gym and by doing so many other things, by eating things right, so that you are mentally and physically able. Likewise, you have to equally or even more so work on your spiritual development. Salawat Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. In fact, the Prophet of Allah even says that people are dead while we live. The Prophet says people are dead. They awake and they come to life only when they actually die. That is when, all the veils will be withdrawn and we will see the afterlife to eternity. And this life was only supposed to be a bridge that you are supposed to be passing, or a rest area. If you're driving on a highway, there is a rest area and you stop at a rest area. You stop at a rest area only to fulfill some of your absolutely necessary things and then move on. Your rest area cannot become your own home. But when you are embarking on that journey, we find, as Imam Hussain says, Inna nas abidud dunya, and their religion, people are the slaves of the world. دينهم لهق على ألسنتهم, and their religion is only chatter or lip service. إذا محسوا بالبلاء خلا ديانون. When they are confronted with calamity, you will only find very few who are holding on to the ground. Everybody else will flee and run away. So my dear brothers and sisters, we should never be considering and be fearful of small numbers. There were always small numbers for those who stood up for truth, those who stood up for righteousness. But we need to be there and we need to stand up. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. If we are seeking this life, this is the life that Imam Hussein has to offer in Karbala. Otherwise, Karbala is filled with blood. Otherwise, Karbala is filled with the blood that was slaughtered of the family of Rasulullah by Bani Umayyah. Karbala is filled with oppression and zulm. In that, when you see the light of hope, that light of hope is only being given to those who are willing to take that light and move forward and get closer towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we are hastening towards that light, the purpose of that light is that not only it shines, but also it gives others a means to see what Allah has in store for them. If that is how we are looking at Karbala, our perspective should change. You know, this 10 days of Ashura should be transforming. It should truly reform us, as the Imam had said, إِنَّمَا خَرَجْتُ لِطَلَبِ إِصْلَافِ أُمَّةِ جَدِّي. This is, this is my khuruj, this is my movement to reform the ummah of my grandfather. Ashura should come and it should reform us. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the holy month of Ramadan that if you fast so that I may give you the tawfiq and inspiration, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may attain taqwa. You may attain taqwa. Here, this is the institution that Imam Hussein is offering, that if you come with a sincere heart, with a heart which is filled with sorrow for his own shortcomings, then this is the institution in which Allah would, by the virtue, by the intercession of Imam Hussein, forgive our sins and attain us to the next level of Iman. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now, Allah Himself says, وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمْ عُدْعُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ. Your Lord has said, Quran is saying, your Lord has said, call me and I will hear you. But we need to call Him. Even if, ulama give an example, if you hear that there is a king who is very, very generous, or there is a rich person who is very, very generous, unfortunately you will find in society a lot of rich people are very, very stingy. You will find poor people very, very generous. But say if you find somebody who is very rich and he is very generous, and if a beggar, somebody who begs, who doesn't have anything, if a beggar walks quietly in front of his house, how is he supposed to get what this generous person is willing to give? The beggar has to call out. He has to call out. There is no other way. Or for that matter, even look at an infant who is a newborn. An infant child who cannot communicate, he does not have a religion, he does not have a language. We believe he is born on the fitrah and he is Muslim. However, he cannot communicate, or that baby cannot communicate. But when the baby is hungry, what does his fitrah tell him to do? He cries. So that the mother becomes attentive that the child is hungry. So my dear brothers and sisters, we need to call. That's what Allah is saying. وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمْ عُدْعُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ. You have to call Allah. You have to ask Allah. And He's saying, أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ. I shall respond to you. He is, we are limited. We are tied with restraints and limits. The one who says, I shall respond to you, he is unlimited. He is infinitely resourceful. It's not like if I call somebody and you say, oh, you called, I did hear you, but I was stuck in traffic. Or I did hear you, I was in, dealing with somebody else. I did hear you, but there were 10 people surrounding me, I could not come. But it is nothing like that for Allah. Udu'uni astajib lakum. If you call upon Him, He shall answer. There is nothing that stops Him from responding to us. So what is the shortcoming? The shortcoming is that we don't call upon Him. It is us who are calling upon others, but we are not calling upon Him. And if we call upon Him, He has promised that He shall respond.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salwan.
Who do we call? Quran says, Surah Fatir verse 14, In tad'uuhum la yasma'u du'aakum. If you invoke, if you call them, they will not hear your call. If you call them, Quran is saying, if you call them, they will not hear your call. وَلَوْ سَمِعُوا مَسْتَجَابُوا لَكُمْ. And even if they heard your call, they cannot respond to you. These are other than gods that we call. Quran is talking about those who are other than gods, that we call them. If you call them, they cannot hear you. And even if they hear, they cannot respond to you. So Quran is testifying this is how human beings are engaged. They do not want to call Allah, but they are willing to call the gods that they have made in their mind, in their conscience. There is one, polytheism, shirk, that somebody puts an idol in front of him and worships him and say, this is my God. This is literal, shirk. But there is called shirk-e-khafi, hidden shirk, hidden polytheism, where there is no physical idol, but these idols have been made in our mind, in our intellect. Instead of reaching to Allah, instead of reaching to the path of Allah, through whom Allah had commanded us to reach Him, we are looking for those channels. We feel they are easier and we can get them. And we are actually making them our gods. We feel our employer is our God. If I don't do this, that's it. I don't know if I will have livelihood or not. Before that job, we never had a livelihood. Allah did not feed us. Without even having job, did not Allah feed us? Those fears for other than gods that we have, for them, if we are willing to cross the line, then Allah is saying, even if they hear, they cannot respond to you. Because ultimately it is Allah who is resourceful. It is Allah who grants. Whether Allah grants that power to shaitan to deviate mankind, even that power is given by Allah. If Fir'aun is going and claiming that I am God, even that power that Fir'aun exercises, that is coming from Allah Himself. Allah is only giving him respite. Allah is only letting him go how far he can go. Because nobody can cross the domain where Allah will not have any control. That's why Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, if you want to sin, then go out of the domain of Allah. Go out of the boundary of Allah. Sin as much as you can. Nobody is going to stop you. But you cannot leave the domain of Allah. Because Allah is controlling the whole of universe. So Quran is saying, even if you call out other than Allah, even if they hear, they cannot do anything. But man is such that he rushes towards those. Now Quran talks about answering to Allah before it is too late. Because there is a limit, there is a boundary after which it becomes too late. Even here, I heard there was a very young man who passed away in our community. I remember where I'm coming from. And I believe in my state the law is, if you do not have a will, then and if you become terminally ill, you cannot make a will anymore. The state will take away whatever wealth you have. And this young man was about 40 years old, went to Ivy League schools and was making good money, had a home, everything. And he did not make a will and he was not married, so nobody could inherit from him. And he became terminally ill, and at that point he wanted to make a will and the state did not allow him. His father is alive, his mother is alive, his brothers are alive, everybody is alive. They did not inherit the wealth that he possessed. That wealth was taken by the state, and the company that he used to work, they raised money to send his body, transfer his body from that state to another state. So until it is too late, there is a point after which, you see laws governing even our lives. So Allah is giving us an opportunity, but there is a time after which you cross it. If a person at the verge of dying, if he says La ilaha illallah, it's too late for that. It's too late. He should have done it before that. Now he sees death is approaching him and he has no room to run anywhere. And if he now concedes and submits to Allah, how Fir'aun tried to do while he was drowning, that is too late. Now Allah would make an example out of him, that his whole army was drowned in the river, but Fir'aun's body was raised by Allah so other people can see. It becomes a source of ibra to other people, that this is the person who used to claim what he was. However, see what is the fate of the same person. Salawat ala Muhammad wa So here in Surah Shura, verse 47, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Istajibu li rabbikum min qabli an ya'tiya yawmun la maradda lahu min Allah. Answer your Lord before there comes a day for which there is no revoking from Allah. Answer to your Lord before there comes a day for which there is no revoking. You cannot go back after that. We have to answer before that, my dear sisters. And this azah of Sayyid al-Shuhada is calling upon us to answer to that call of Allah. Because Ahl al-Bayt, they are, as ulama say, they are Ainai Haqnuma. They are mirrors that only reflect haqq. They only reflect truth. When you stand in front of a mirror, does mirror manifest itself? It shows itself? No. It shows whatever it is in standing in front of him. If the mirror is good, then the mirror will reflect what is standing in front of him. Mirror will not show this is me and this is how I am. And if it starts showing itself, what happens? You say this mirror has gone bad, Some of those places of vacation, when you go into boardwalks and stuff like that, there are places where you can go to that thing where there are different mirrors that completely warps the image of a person. But can you use those mirrors for your regular life? Of course not, because that mirror is distorted. So a pure mirror, or the function of a pure mirror, is not to manifest itself, but to reflect what is in front of him. And we find Ahl al-Bayt are manifesting haqq. They are not showing off themselves. They are just mere mirrors. They are merely mirrors which can manifest haqq. That's why they are called mazhare, sifate, jamalo, kamale, kibriya. That is why they are the manifestation of the attributes of Allah. My dear brothers and sisters. Or for that example, I always use for young people, now I'm not sure because of pandemic, some of you might not have gone that much to your home countries, but there you have 220 volts, there is 120 volts here. Now with the world becoming small, we have all these adapters for our phones which work on both of them. There was a time in 90s, if you buy any electric equipment from here, when you go there you have to have a transformer which can step down or step up, whichever. It's 120 here, it has to go there. If you bring something from there, it has to step down. or for that matter, you see those big transformers near very high tension lines. Those big transformers, what do? Those currents that are flowing on those lines are like thousands of volts. If those currents flow into our wiring, our home will burn into ashes. That is how much current that is carrying. But there is a transformer that steps it down to a level where the wiring of our home can bear it. That is how it works. So like that, you see that when even Hazrat Musa wanted to see the self-disclosure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, tajalli of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you see the mountain had crushed and burned into ashes. That is what has happened. So our Aimma, Rasulullah and Ahlul Bayt are those means through which we can look into that mirror so that we can get connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salawat ala Muhammad. And Allah says, those who call other than Allah, they are the ones who are misguided. Clearly, Quran talks about it. وَمَنْ أَزَلُّ مِمَّنْ يَدْعُو مِنْ دُونِ اللَّهِ. Who is more deviated than who invokes someone besides Allah? Who is more deviated than the one who calls upon someone other than Allah? And Allah says, "Man la yastajibu lahu," and besides Allah, such as would not respond to him, ila yawmil qiyamah, until the day of judgment, he is not going to respond. But Allah is saying, who is more deviated, who is more astray from the path of Sirat al-Mustaqim than the one who calls other than Allah? When we call Rasulullah, when we call Ahlul Bayt, we are channeling the resources that Allah has provided us. We are not asking, we don't call the Prophet here, we don't consider Prophet to be on this side and Allah to be on this side, and we are calling Allah against, we are calling the Prophet against Allah. No. This is not in parallel, this is in series. So the first step is the Prophet and the next step is Allah. You reach out to the Prophet and the Prophet passes on to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are verses, if I get time, I can share with you where Allah himself is going. Go to the Prophet so that he can do istighfar on your behalf so that you may attain forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you go off and do it yourself, it's not going to work. It is not going to work. So these are means, and for those who say, no, if you call them, you are not calling Allah directly, then we find that Allah has delegated tasks of this universe to angels, to prophets, to awliya, and they are working under him and working for him. For example, if a person gets a speeding ticket, on a road, eventually he reports to the governor or whoever is the head of the state. But he is not going to go all the way down to govern the whole city. There has to be somebody below. Likewise, Allah has created angels. But for mankind, Allah was so compassionate, Allah was so caring, as Allah himself says that, "O mankind, I have created this whole world for you, but I have created you for me." And then Allah has sent the most beloved to Allah, even before this world existed, who had said La ilaha illallah, who were doing his tasbih in heavens, and angels were listening to his tasbih and repeating what they were saying. He sent them upon this earth in the form of Rasulullah and Ahlul Bayt so that we are guided towards him. So, my dear brothers and sisters, I have more to talk, but I think I need to, in the interest of time, get closer to my speech. We need to really engage in reflection and in reflecting how Imam Hussein had stood for righteousness. I have been sharing how the Imam was never fearful of death, but he was willing to live with dignity and honor. And he had said so many times, Hayhat min az-zillah, a life of humiliation is not worth living. And life of humiliation means somebody comes and humiliates you. That is not the life of humiliation. Life of humiliation is you are living a life filled with sins. You are living a life that even if you stand in front of a mirror, you are embarrassing yourself. That's why you find people don't have courage to be on their own. You will find people very, even they say it, I just can't be by myself. Something has to keep running. There was a time when radio used to be there, so people would have 24 hours radio running. Because they can't be with their own self alone, quiet. If they are, then suddenly things start coming up. And what did I do? I did this and I did that, and they are not willing to deal with those things. When we are supposed to resolve those things, have to set criteria for what we are doing, align our goals such that we are heading towards Allah. Allah says, Ya ayyuhal insan innaka kadihun ila sabil rabbik. O insan, O mankind, you are coming towards me, and you are coming towards me laboriously, and you shall meet me. Whether you like it or not, you shall meet me. But are we ready for that encounter, that liqa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Imam Hussein had come, that those who are willing to transform their lives, Imam Hussein would turn them around. It would not take 900 years of tabligh of Hazrat Nuh. It is only, one meeting of Imam Hussein and a person transforms completely, whose heart is pure. The condition is, if we have a container, if the container is dirty, you keep pouring pure water, what will happen to the pot water inside that goes in the container? The water is going to get dirty. But if the container is clean, you put pure water, it will retain it as pure water. So if our hearts are pure and we seek from Imam Hussein, that guidance will come and that guidance will retain. That's why we find one meeting with Zuhair Rekhain with Imam Hussein transforms him. Zuhair Rekhain was avoiding Imam Hussein. Zuhair Rekhain was returning from Hajj and Imam Hussein was going to Kufa. Zuhair Rekhain was one of the nobles of Kufa, and yet he was known to be on the deen of the third Khalifa, on the side of the third Khalifa. As you all are aware, the Ummah had been pulled into two groups, and he was known to be somebody who would call himself Usmani. That's how he used to call himself. And he did not want it to indulge, because he had already known and heard in Hajj that there are, plans to take down Imam Hussein. He did not want it to be part of any confrontation. Anyway, he was not even on the side of Ali ibn Abi Talib, so why should I even be part? Like how we try to engage very passively and say, it's not my problem, it's not, it's somebody else's problem. I don't have to deal with it. When Amr bil Maruf and Nahi anil Munkar is part of our Furu Deen, it is equally important. In fact, the most important one, if you see in the words of Imam Hussein, Uridu an a'mura bil ma'ruf wa anha anil munkar. I want to establish Amr bil Maruf and Nahi anil Munkar. Mufassirin of the Ahadith, they say that this is the most important duty. If Amr bil Maruf and Nahi anil Munkar is established, then Salat and Saum and Zakat and everything is going to be established. But if Amr bil Maruf is out the door, then, the world is let loose. So, Zuhair Khain, Imam only asked him to meet, and he finally meets. In fact, when the caravan of Imam was going, he would change the position. If the Imam is resting, he will move. And such that they don't confront each other. Imam made an effort to meet with him. But the moment Imam meets, Zuhair-e-Khain is completely transformed. Now he tells his wife, along with the whole caravan, to leave, go from here. Now I am going to accompany the grandson of Rasulullah. And I know that death is inevitable for anybody who is coming along with Imam Hussein. He knew that. So what I am trying to say, my dear brothers and sisters, that guidance that Imam has given to those whose hearts were pure is still available with Imam Hussein and also with the Imam of our time. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The only problem is that we are not willing to seek it. Those who were with him, even those who were young, like tonight inshallah we are going to talk about Hazrat Ali Akbar. We find when Imam Hussein was calling out, one of the sayings of Imam Hussein that I have said, that death is surrounding a person as a necklace for a young woman. And then the Imam says, I yearn to meet my loved ones who have already passed as much as Yaqub wanted to meet Yusuf. Death was inevitable. Death is on its way. And then Imam starts reciting the poetry with, the Maqtal talks about how Hazrat Zainab became very sorrowful, and she says, oh my beloved brother, what you are saying is telling me that death is inevitable. What is happening? You are the only, Ahle Kisa that is left, and how can we have you gone? I have already lost my father, I have already lost my mother, I have already lost my brother. And Hazrat Zainab starts crying profusely. Around those events only, we find Hazrat Ali Akbar approaching the Imam. Hazrat Ali Akbar comes to the Imam and he says, Baba, oh my beloved father, aren't we on haqq? Aren't we on the path of righteousness? And Imam says, of course my son, we are on the path of righteousness. Then just as how Hazrat Qasim said that death to Hazrat Qasim is ahla min asal, that's sweeter than honey, here Maqtal testifies that Ali Akbar said, oh Baba, in that case, whether death comes to us or we go towards death, it doesn't make any difference. We will embrace death. We will take death in our own arms if it comes, as long as we are on the path of haqq, as long as we are on the path of righteousness. My dear brothers and sisters, this was a very, very special child for Imam Hussein. This son was so special that Imam Hussein, the words that came out of Imam Hussein had never come out in the whole Maqtal for any Shaheed. When we look into the Maqtal, in fact, the Maqtal says, فَلَمَّا لَمْ يَبْقَ مَعَهُ سِوَى أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِهِ خَرَجَ عَلِيُّ بْنُ الْحُسَيْنِ وَكَانَ مِنْ أَصْبَحَ النَّاسِ وِجْهًا وَأَحْسَنَهُمْ خُلْقًا. The Maqtal is saying that when there was nobody left from the companions of the Imam, there were only now Ahl al-Bayt, the immediate family. At that point, Ali ibn al-Husayn, meaning Hazrat Ali Akbar, approaches the Imam. And the Maqtal is describing how handsome he was and how his akhlaq were the akhlaq of a perfect person. And then he comes and he says, فَاسْتَعْزَنَ أَبَاهُ فِي الْقِتَالِ فَأَذِنَ لَهُ. He came and he asked for permission to go into the battlefield. My dear brothers and sisters, and the narration says that Imam gave him permission immediately. Imam immediately said, "O Ali Akbar, go towards the battlefield." However, the words that come after it that the Imam had recited, he had never said this for any Shaheed. وَنَظَرَ إِلَيْهِ نَظَرَ آيَةٍ مِّنْهُ وَأَرْخَى عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ. And he looked at Ali Akbar, and his look gave hopelessness, despair, and eyes were flowing with tears. وبكى, and Imam started crying. قال اللهم اشهد فقد برز إليهم غلام أشبه الناس خلقا وخلقا ومنطقا برسولك. Oh Allah, be witness. Now I am sending the young man who resembles in his character and in his features with your prophet, with your Rasul. وَكُنَّا إِذَا اشْتَقْنَا إِلَى نَبِيِّكَ نَظَرْنَا إِلَيْهِ. And then I had the desire to see your prophet, Ya Allah. I would see this young man. I would see Ali Akbar. فَصَاهَا وَقَالَ يَا ابْنَ السَّعَدِ خَطَأَ اللَّهُ رَحْمَكَ كَمَا خَطَأْتَ رَحْمِي. Imam cursed Umar ibn Sa'd, and Imam cried and said, Oh Ibn Sa'd, may Allah cut off your lineage as you did to mine. My dear brothers and sisters, when we go in the detail of Mastar, we find that Imam had asked Ali Akbar, Oh Ali Akbar, go into the Qiyam, go into the tents and bid farewell to Ahl al-Bayt. And when Ali Akbar arrived inside the tent of Ahl al-Bayt, on one side it is Zainab, on the other side it is Layla, who is yearning for Ali Akbar. And when Zainab comes and Zainab says, Oh Ali Akbar, I can let our Muhammad go, Ali Akbar, but how can I let you go? For this battle, Ali Akbar, it is going to be inevitable. And Hazrat Zainab, when she says, Ali Akbar is having his head down, and he says, Oh my aunt Zainab, I know you have raised me, I know you love me so much, oh Zainab, but tell me, Ali Akbar is dear to you, or the son of Zahra is dear to you. And hearing this, Zainab says, Khuda Hafiz, oh Ali Akbar, fi amanillah, Ali Akbar, go. Ali Akbar is leaving the tent, and Maqatil says that the door of the tent would come up and keep going down. It is as if that the women would not let Ali Akbar leave, because Ali Akbar is the source of strength to Imam Hussain, and Imam Hussain is asking Ali Akbar now to go to Maqtal. However, Imam says, Oh Ali Akbar, while you are heading towards the enemy, keep looking behind me. And while Ali Akbar starts heading towards the enemy, he keeps looking behind, only to find as the horse starts to race and get faster, Hussain is also running behind him. Oh my beloved father, you have already given me permission, why are you coming behind me? And Hussain said, Oh Ali Akbar, I wish you had a son like you had a son like you, and then you would know how losing a son like you would turn his father. Go Ali Akbar. Ali Akbar goes into the battlefield, and Maqatil says, فَقَاتَلَ قِتَالًا شَدِيدًا وَقَتَلَ جَمِيعًا كَثِيرًا. Ali Akbar fought intensely and killed many of them, and then there comes an enemy, and when the enemy comes, the face of Hussain is turning red. And when Fizza asks, Oh my master, what is happening to Ali Akbar? Imam said, Oh Fizza, the enemy is too strong, and my son is thirsty, O Fizza. My son is weak, O Fizza, because of thirst. Call upon Allah so that praise of Ali Akbar returns. And Fizza conveys the news, and here Zainab and Layla, the whole Haram, raise their hands calling upon Allah. Oh Allah, the same God that has returned Yusuf to Yaqub, return Ali Akbar to Hussain. And Ali Akbar returns. How Ali Akbar returns? ثم رجع إلى أبي وقال يا أبتا العطش قد قتلني. Oh my father, thirst is killing me. Oh my father, فهل إلى شربة من من الماء السبيل. Oh Father, is there any water? If I have a little bit of water, I can show this ashqiya. This is my dear brother and sister. Ali Akbar knew that there was no water, and some Makhatir says that Imam asked Ali Akbar to put his tongue into the mouth of Imam Hussein. Maybe he could find some comfort because of the heat, and Ali Akbar removes his tongue saying, oh my father, you are more thirsty than I am. And Fabakar Hussein, and Imam starts crying, Faqala, and then the Imam says, oh Ali Akbar, go now towards the Makhtar, Ya Bunayya, Khatir Khalilan, fight a little, oh my son, فما أسرع ما تلقى جدك محمدا فيسقيك بكأسه. My grandfather is waiting with a cup of water to quench your thirst, Ya Ali Akbar. Go towards the battlefield. Ali Akbar goes back into the battlefield and fights the enemy, and he fights intensely, but then فرماه منخذ بن مرة العبدي لعنه الله. منخذ بن مرة العبدي comes from behind, throwing an arrow that comes in and pierces into the heart of Ali Akbar. Ali Akbar falls from the ground. Even while falling, when we hear Ali Akbar is calling his father, Ya Abayda, alayka salam. Oh my father, my salam upon you. Hada Jaddi, yukreka salam. Your grandfather is here. He is conveying his salam. وَيَقُولُ لَكَ أَجِّلِ الْقُدُومَ عَلَيْنَا. And your grandfather is saying, tell your father to come soon towards him. Shaka, Famata. And Ali Akbar is gone. Hussein comes to the body of Ali Akbar. And the Makhtar says, فَجَعَ الْحُسَيْنِ حَتَّى وَقَفَ عَلَيْهِ وَوَضَعَ قَدَّهُ عَلَى قَدِّهِ. Imam comes and he puts his cheek on the cheeks of Ali Akbar, and Imam is crying profusely, and he says, قَتَلَ اللَّهُ قَوْمًا قَتَلُوكَ. May Allah kill those, O Ali Akbar, who have killed you, O Ali Akbar. And then Imam says the words that Imam had never said, and he says, Ala dunya ba'daka afa. O Ali Akbar, after you, this life is not worth living. And Makhatir says that when Ali Akbar is there, and when Zainab hears that Ali Akbar has fallen, Zainab comes from the Qiyam, and when Hussein sees Zainab approaching, Imam Hussein asks Zainab to return, but Imam Hussein does not have the strength to bear the body of his son. He starts calling upon the children of Bani Hashim. Oh, children of Bani Hashim, come and help your old Hussein, who could not lift the body of his young son Ali Akbar. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, we are living through the most difficult times in this pandemic. Eradicate this pandemic from the face of earth, Ya Allah. We ask you, Allah, to protect life, honor, property, and dignity of believers wherever they are. We ask you, Allah, to cure those who are sick in our community. We ask you, Allah, to forgive those who have passed away from our community. We ask you, Allah, to hasten the reappearance of your Hujjah and make us such that your Hujjah would be pleased with us. Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein.
थक जाइए बाबा मेरा दम टूट रहा है, चेहरे पा मेरे मौत का आया है पसीना, चेहरे पा मेरे मौत का आया है पसीना, बस हो चुका अब खात्मा, दम टूट रहा है। अकबर ने ये से कहा, दम टूट रहा है, पर्ची की हनी रह गई है सीने में मेरे, पर्ची की हनी रह गई है सीने में मेरे, दम टूट रहा है मेरा, दम टूट रहा है। अकबर ने ये शर्त कहा, दम टूट रहा है, अकबर ने ये शर्त कहा, दम टूट रहा है। बाबा मेरे सीने से हटा लीजिए अब हाथ, बाबा मेरे सीने से हटा लीजिए अब हाथ, सीने से लहू बह गया, दम टूट रहा है। अकबर ने ये शर्त कहा, दम टूट रहा है। 18 बरस पालने वाली सेना कहना, 18 बरस पालने वाली सेना कहना, रन में तेरे फरजांद का दम टूट रहा है। अकबर ने से कहा, दम टूट रहा है।
दिखाऊं मैं कैसे जख्म दिल के, दिखाऊं मैं कैसे तेरा लाशा उठाऊं मैं कैसे। अकबर मेरा तेरे हवाला, अकबर अकबर मेरा तेरे हवाला, अकबर अकबर मेरा तेरे हवाला, अकबर। काश अकबर बेशाह जब पहुँचे, दिल को हाथों से थाम के बोले, मेरी फुर्सत में अकबर आग दिल में मेरे लगा दी है, आग दिल की बुझाऊं मैं कैसे, आग दिल की बुझाऊं मैं कैसे, तेरा लाशा उठाऊं मैं कैसे। अकबर मेरा हवाला, खैमों में जाऊं मैं कैसे, लेके खैमों में जाऊं मैं कैसे, तेरा लाशा उठाऊं मैं कैसे। अकबर मेरा शहर हवाला, अकबर अकबर मेरा शहर हवाला, अकबर अकबर मेरा शहर हवाला, अकबर अकबर मेरा शहर हवाला। जिसने 18 साल पाला था, कैसे देखे कि वो तेरा लाशा। तेरी शादी का था जिसे अरमां, कैसे झीले कि वो तेरा सदमा। तेरी माँ को बताऊं मैं कैसे, तेरी माँ को बताऊं मैं कैसे, तेरा लाशा उठाऊं मैं कैसे। अकबर मेरा शहर हवाला, अकबर मेरा शहर हवाला, अकबर अकबर मेरा शहर हवाला, अकबर अकबर मेरा शहर हवाला, अकबर अकबर मेरा शहर हवाला। एक आया है रास्ते सुगरा, राह तकती है वो दुखी बहना। तुझको बीमार ने बुलाया है, वादा सुगरा तो क्यों भुला डाला। हम ये दिल से लगाऊं मैं कैसे, हम ये दिल से लगाऊं मैं कैसे, तेरा लाशा उठाऊं मैं कैसे। अकबर मेरा शहर हवाला, अकबर अकबर मेरा शहर हवाला, अकबर अकबर मेरा शहर हवाला, अकबर अकबर मेरा शहर हवाला, अकबर। भाई बहना रिश्ता जिसका सानी कहीं नहीं मिलता। बेटे सुगरा ने ये लिखा, अकबर एक दुखैया इलाज रख लेना। मर गया तू बताऊं मैं कैसे, मर गया तू बताऊं मैं कैसे, तेरा लाशा उठाऊं मैं कैसे। अकबर मेरा शहर हवाला, अकबर अकबर मेरा शहर हवाला, अकबर मेरा शहर हवाला, अकबर अकबर मेरा शहर हवाला। भाई बहनों का अजब रिश्ता जिसका सानी कहीं नहीं मिलता। बेटे सुगरा ने ये लिखा, अकबर एक दुखैया इलाज रख लेना। मर गया तू बताऊं मैं कैसे, मर गया तू बताऊं मैं कैसे, तेरा लाशा दिखाऊं मैं कैसे। अकबर मेरा शहर हवाला, अकबर मेरा शहर हवाला, अकबर मेरा शहर हवाला, अकबर मेरा शहर हवाला। लुत्फ जीने अब कहाँ अकबर, दी थी तूने जो पूर लाए थी वो अज़ाक पे। तेरी सूरत बुलाऊं मैं जाऊं मैं कैसे अकबर, मेरा शहर वाला अकबर अकबर, मेरा शहर वाला अकबर अकबर, मेरा शहर वाला अकबर अकबर, मेरा शहर वाला अकबर। हजरत में पेशा जब पहुंचे दिल को हाथों से थाम कर बोले, तेरी फुर्सत में अली अकबर, आग दिल में मेरे लगा दी है, आग दिल की बुझाऊं मैं कैसे, आग दिल की बुझाऊं मैं कैसे, बुझाऊं मैं कैसे अकबर, मेरा शहर वाला अकबर अकबर, मेरा शहर वाला अकबर अकबर, मेरा शहर वाला अकबर, मेरा शहर वाला लुत्फ जीने में अब कहाँ अकबर, दिल से उठती है ये फोका अकबर, सुबह आशूर दी थी तूने जो फूल लाए थी वो अज़ा अकबर, तेरी सूरत बुलाऊं मैं कैसे, तेरी सूरत बुलाऊं मैं कैसे, तेरा वाचा बुलाऊं मैं कैसे अकबर, मेरा शहर वाला अकबर, मन मनहारी अकबर तू ना आयो, 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 मैं सदके मैं वारी अकबर तू ना आयो, मैं सदके मैं वारी अकबर तू ना आयो, मन मनहारी अकबर तू ना आयो, मन मनहारी अकबर तू ना आयो, जीरा भैया दामाद मेरा वादे, जीरा भैया दामाद मेरा वादे, हाय भूल गई नैन बिहारी अकबर तू ना आयो, भूल गई नैन बिहारी अकबर तू ना आयो, मन मनहारी 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 अकबर तू ना आयो, मैं सदके मैं वारी अकबर तू ना आयो, मैं सदके मैं वारी अकबर तू ना आयो, मन मनहारी अकबर तू ना आयो, मेरा भैया दामाद मेरा वादे, जीरा भैया दामाद मेरा वादे, हाय भूल गई बहन बिहारी अकबर तू ना आयो, भूल गई बहन बिहारी अकबर तू ना आयो, मन मनहारी 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 अकबर तू ना आयो, मैं सदके मैं वाली अकबर तू ना आयो, मैं सदके मैं वाली अकबर तू ना आयो। गुजारी अकबर तू ना आयो मनता मन मनहारी अकबर तू ना आयो मनता मन मनहारी अकबर तू ना आयो मनता मन मनहारी अकबर तू ना आयो मैं सदके महवारी अकबर तू ना आयो मैं सदके महवारी अकबर तू ना आयो मनता मन मनहारी अकबर तू ना आयो मनता मन मनहारी खाने दे रोने दे जाके रात दिने खाने दे रोने दे जाके रात दिने हाय रो रो अर्ज गुजारी अकबर तू ना आयो रो रो अर्ज गुजारी अकबर तू ना आयो मनता मनहारी अकबर तू ना आयो मनता मनहारी अकबर तू ना आयो मनता मन मनहारी अकबर तू ना आयो मैं सबके महवारी अकबर तू ना आयो मैं सबके महवारी अकबर तू ना आयो मनता मन मनहारी 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 अकबर बाबा दे विच बैठी डोरी झूले दी बाबा दे विच बैठी डोरी झूले दी हाय रह गया झूला खाली असगर तू ना आयो रह गया झूला खाली असगर तू ना आयो मनता मन मनहारी अकबर तू ना आयो मनता मन मनहारी अकबर तू ना आयो मनता मन मनहारी अकबर तू ना आयो मैं सदके महवारी अकबर तू ना आयो मैं सदके महवारी अकबर तू ना आयो मैं सदके महवारी अकबर तू ना आयो दूंगिया शामा पास अकबर से मेरा दूंगिया शामा पास अकबर सुबरा हाय रुल गई मैन बिहारी अकबर तू ना आयो रुल गई मैन बिहारी अकबर तू ना आयो मनता मन मनहारी अकबर तू ना आयो मनता मन मनहारी अकबर तू ना आयो या हुसैन 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 करबला का मातल में इंतहा है सुल्तान 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 सुल्तान करबला का मातम इम्तिहान है। शब्बीर तशनलब है सैराब गुल जहां है। शब्बीर तशनलब है सैराब गुल जहां है। सुल्तान करबला का मातम इम्तिहान है। सुल्तान करबला का मातम इम्तिहान है। बच्चे तड़प रहे हैं तशना नबी से बेहद। बच्चे तड़प रहे हैं तशना नबी से बेहद। और सामने है दरिया जहाँ से तड़प रहे हैं। और सामने है दरिया जहाँ से तड़प रहे हैं। सुल्तान करबला का मातम इम्तिहान है। सुल्तान करबला का मातम इम्तिहान है। सीने पे पर्ची अकबर तड़प रहे हैं। सीने पे पर्ची भागे अकबर तड़प रहे हैं। ये ढूंढते हैं रन में हरियल जहाँ कहाँ है। ये ढूंढते हैं रन में हरियल जहाँ कहाँ है। सीने पे पर्ची खाके अकबर तड़प रहे हैं। सीने पे पर्ची खाके अकबर तड़प रहे हैं। ये ढूंढते रन में करियल जहाँ कहाँ है। ये ढूंढते रन में करियल जहाँ कहाँ है। सुल्तान करबला का मातम इम्तिहान है। सुल्तान करबला का मातम इम्तिहान है। शब्बीर है अकेले मैयत ना उठ सकेगी। शब्बीर है अकेले मैयत ना उठ सकेगी। औलाद और ज़रीफ़ी बेटा जो नौजवान है। औलाद और ज़रीफ़ी बेटा जो नौजवान है। शब्बीर है अकेले मैयत ना उठ सकेगी। शब्बीर है अकेले मैयत ना उठ सकेगी। औलाद और ज़रीफ़ी बेटा जो नौजवान है। औलाद और ज़रीफ़ी बेटा जो नौजवान है। सुल्तान करबला का मातम इम्तिहान है। सुल्तान करबला का मातम इम्तिहान है। तुरबत बना के मारा रो कर ये कह रहे हैं। तुरबत बना के मारा रो कर ये कह रहे हैं। पहुँचे ना दूर किसी का बच्चा ये बेज़ुबान है। पहुँचे ना दूर किसी का बच्चा एक बेज़ुबान है। सुल्तान करबला का मातम इम्तिहान है। सुल्तान
Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein.
माँ ने कहा बीवियों बुका
न करो, तड़प के माँ ने कहा बीवियों पुकार न करो। अभी अभी मेरे अकबर को नींद आई है, तड़प के माँ ने कहा बीवियों पुकार न करो। होगा के शोर से रग में भी इल्तिजा न करो। होगा के शोर से में इल्तिजा न करो। अभी अभी मेरे अकबर को नींद आई है, तड़प के माँ ने कहा बीवियों पुकार न करो। ये मेरा लाल जहाँ को लगा के सोया है, ये मेरा लाल जहाँ को लगा के सोया है। सीना का वार कलेजे खा के सोया है, सीना का वार कलेजे खा के सोया है। बुलंद करके सदाएं उसे खफा न करो। अभी अभी मेरे अकबर को नींद आई है, तड़प के माँ ने कहा बीवियों पुकार न करो। तड़प के माँ ने कहा बीवियों पुकार न करो। ये मेरी जाने तमन्ना थका हुआ है बहुत, ये मेरी जाने तमन्ना थका हुआ है बहुत। ये 3 रोज का प्यासा थका हुआ है बहुत, ये 3 रोज का प्यासा थका हुआ है बहुत। न जाग जाए कहीं चुप रहो, पुकार न करो। अभी अभी मेरे अकबर को नींद आई है, तड़प के माँ ने कहा बीवियों पुकार न करो। तड़प के माँ ने कहा बीवियों पुकार न करो। मकाम फिक्र बहन के अपने लहू का लिबास आया है, बहन के अपने लहू का लिबास आया है। नवेद फतहा लिए मेरे पास आया है, नवेद फतहा लिए मेरे पास आया है। मकाम शुक्र है रो रो कि तुम गिला न करो। अभी अभी मेरे अकबर को नींद आई है, तड़प के माँ ने कहा बीवियों पुकार न करो। आप लोगों को
मौला हक इमाम या हसन या हुसैन, मौला हक इमाम या हसन या हुसैन, या हुसैन 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 या हुसैन। वो आबिदे बीमार था, वो आबिदे बीमार था, चलने से जो लाचार था। और शाम का बाजार था और मुस्तफा
बेटियां मौला हक इमाम या हसन या हुसैन मौला हक इमाम या हसन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन शब्बीर की वो लाडली शब्बीर की वो लाडली सीने पे जो शहरे पली जिसकी अबावन में जली वो पर तमाचों पे निशान मौला हक इमाम या हसन या हुसैन मौला हक इमाम या हसन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन वो असगरे बेशीर था वो असगरे बेशीर था और मुरमला का तीर था प्यासा गला क्यों करकटा काफी जमीन और आसमां मौला हक इमाम या हसन या हुसैन मौला हक इमाम या हसन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन प्यासे गले खंजर चले प्यासे गले खंजर चले चादर छिनी खने जले आबाद के परचम तले रो कर कहे ये बीबियां मौला हक इमाम या हसन या हुसैन मौला हक इमाम या हसन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन शाम गरीब आ गई शाम गरीब आ गई आबिद को गैरत आ गई पहले पे ज़ैनब आ गई अब्बास और अकबर कहाँ मौला हक इमाम या हसन या हुसैन मौला हक इमाम या हसन या हुसैन 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 या हुसैन
अस्सलामु अलैका या रसूल अल्लाह अस्सलामु अलैका या हबीब अल्लाह अस्सलामु अलैका या अमीर अल-मुमिनीन अस्सलामु अलैका या अबा अब्दुल्लाह अस्सलामु अलैका या इब्न रसूलिल्लाह अस्सलामु अलल हुसैन व अला अली इब्न अल-हुसैन وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين خصوصا سيدي ومولاي أبا الفضل العباس يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وقاسم بن حسان ومسلم بن عقيل وهاني بن عروة وحبيب بن وزاهر وحر شهيد الرياح السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء السلام عليك يا سلطان يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن موسى أيها الرضا السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان الأمان 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 خليفة الرحمن إمام الإنس والجان شريك القرآن أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم كن لوليك حجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل
الساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
Please recite Amma Yajib for the safety of Tamam Shiane Haidar Karrar all over the world, and especially for the mother of Brother Shahid Kazmi, my mother, wife of Brother Musa and Asad Bhai Maulana is talking about. All the Digar Mu'min and Mu'minat who are sick or they're in trouble, for their recovery and for their safety, please recite. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Amma yujibul mustaraiza da'u wa yakshifu su. 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 Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Please recite one time Surah Fatiha and 3 times Qul Huwallah for all the departed souls, especially for the Buzurg of Hazin Majlis. Please recite Surah Mubarakatul Fatiha.
नारे तकबीर, अल्लाहु अकबर, नारे सलात, या रसूलल्लाह, नारे हैदरी,
या अली, लब्बैक या हुसैन,
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 लब्बैक या महदी,
लब्बैक या महदी,
लब्बैक या महदी,
लब्बैक या महदी,
लब्बैक या महदी।
लब्बैक या महदी।
बराए ज़हूर इमाम ज़मान पर खुलूस सलावत।